Even though there's one episode left of Stranger Things season 5 and then the show's over, there's no way they can redeem themselves at this point. This show is an absolute nightmare now. It is being compared to Game of Thrones, and basically everybody on the internet is wrecking the terrible decisions they've made. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, a lot of people liked season 5 part 1. I still had quite a few issues with it. The pacing felt really off. I think all of the issues truly do stem from the 18-month time skip. I think that was a terrible decision because it's like they reset the clock. They should have built off of the final scene in season 4, and it felt like hell had come to Hawkins, but they didn't do that. And then you have all of these storylines going on. Ugh, I just do not like where they've taken Stranger Things, and season 5 part 2 has gone over abysmally. Just a few days ago, before part 2 had released, it was sitting at a 79% score on Rotten Tomatoes, which still isn't amazing, but it's all the way down to a 65, and it's only going to continue to tank. I do not see a way that they can make everything better in the last episode, which is basically a movie. I do not see how they can make these terrible decisions make sense. And yes, it is not on the level of Game of Thrones quite yet because the final season had a 55 critic and a 30% audience score, but I think that the massive amount of disappointment is going to lead even more people to rating it really poorly. Now, one of the big issues that we've seen is that every single character is lobotomized. None of these characters are doing what they would do in previous seasons. We went from season 3, Mike, who said, Elle isn't a tool, she's a person and you need to treat her with respect, to in season 5 going, can't you just recharge your battery by eating sweets? You have Will giving a 20-minute scene about how he's gay as hell. You have Robin, who told him to tell everybody, who, by the way, she's still in the closet. She still hasn't told everybody, so I don't really know why Will would think, I'm going to follow her advice when she isn't even following it. And then you have Elle constantly giving like these supermodel duck faces all the time, her and her filler. It is just terrible. You are talking about the main characters like Mike getting less screen time than random recently introduced characters like Vicky, and the only things that I really liked about this season are how consistent Lucas and Max are. I think they're great together. I still like Dustin and Steve, and I like that they brought Mr. Clark in. Joyce and Hopper are cool, but that's literally it. And they are getting absolutely annihilated on social media for this terrible season. The entire Will coming out scene is just peak Netflix. You could have had him tell one or two characters in private, like Joyce and maybe Jonathan and Mike, and have it be a really intimate situation, like when Robin came out in season 3 to Steve. Like, it felt more emotionally impactful, but this is just peak Netflix, making these characters go through the cringiest scenarios possible. The dialogue was horrific, the acting was horrific. I mean, the entire "I'm never gonna leave your side," "Me either, me either, me either," every character going to hug him was just so modern day Dungeons and Dragons, where everybody's accepting, everybody's nice, everybody's caring, the gay is okay. Like, it had no emotional depth to it, and that's just a big problem with season 5, is it felt too modern. Season 1 was dark, it was horrific, it was gritty. Season 2 started getting away from that. Season 3 had a wildly different aesthetic. Season 4 brought it back closer to the first season, but season 5 is just wildly bad. And then you have this. At this point, Netflix is just rage baiting us. I don't like girls. I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah, I mean, it is very reminiscent of the Last of Us Ellie scene. That is for sure. 5 seasons, hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is all Stranger Things will be remembered for. Netflix is a joke. And I think that everybody already had a hunch that Will was gay. I think that they've been hinting at that for multiple seasons at this point. And if he told one or two people in a more intimate manner, again, I think that it would have been more emotionally impactful and not as many people would have complained. But it's like his entire personality at this point. He is suddenly gay and he's got all these powers. Like, congratulations, I guess, man. If being gay is the deepest, darkest secret Vecna could find out about you after being in your mind, yeah, you're not an interesting character at all whatsoever. Your sexuality really shouldn't be that big of a deal. The Duffer Brothers also had said that they spent more time writing Will's monologue in Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2 than any other scene in the series, and the gay is the best that they could really come up for with him. And Noah Schnapp had even revealed that the Stranger Things cast spent 12 hours filming Will's monologue and another 12 hours of reshoot. So that means that there's 12 hours of worse footage than what we got. That is a terrible thing to think of. I mean, that is really bad. I genuinely don't think any of these actors are going to get acting jobs after this. I think that most of their acting is pretty freaking horrific, and I think that most of their careers are done. Sure, I think a couple of them will get Netflix jobs, but that's it. And I don't think that they're going to be around in, 5 years, roughly. Most of them are flat, most of them are dull, and maybe over these multiple seasons, if they had actually taken some acting courses or they weren't focused on following modern trends in acting, they'd be doing a hell of a lot better, but that's just not the case. And looking at what the reviews over on Rotten Tomatoes are saying, yes, it is definitely not a good scenario. For a show that has been declining over the years in terms of writing, this finally hit the rock bottom. The flaws of this season isn't just about the Will coming out scene, but the way it was executed. It was heartwarming for the most part, but then you realize it was a little bit forced. Yeah, the world is ending and you're worried about having this big scene of his sexuality. There's no urgency in this season. And I think that is a major disconnect. You have Max discussing things with Holly while the portal was open when she should be running towards it. Her and Holly had tons of time together while they were exploring the cave, while they were going into the forest. She could have explained, hey, listen, you're going to go wherever your body is during any of those points, but instead she decides to do it while Vecna is hunting them. And you also, again, have this Will scene. I feel like the discussions between Robin and some of these other characters, also like Will, is wild. And I know that Will has always been a main character, and I think that it would be fine for that to continue, but they also need to stop sidelining Eleven. Like, Eleven is completely irrelevant now. Will has all of her powers. Nobody's treating her like a human. They had her being built up over the years, and now she's just a tool to carry the plot, when really they don't even care about her anymore. None of the main team seems to care about her. It's just horrific. Character development in the show stalls after season 2 and just becomes a race to get the most colors on the flag. The homosexual scene is cringy and unnecessary, although expected from a Netflix series rock bottom. They say that they are extremely satisfied with Volume 1, but Volume 2 had Will in a similar stage as in Season 1, which was a bit disappointing. Lastly, Episode 7, which yes, is a build-up to the grand finale, could have been performed better with more on the edge of your seat occurrences. Yes, I think that, again, they really killed the momentum that the show had with the 18-month time skip. Surprise, surprise, another show ruined by the gay pick-me character. This person gave it a 5 and said the show was getting so much hate. The thing about Will coming out, I guess, is not needed, but it was barely 5 minutes long, and that's it. Just move on. The rest of the show was explaining the mystery. I'm extremely disappointed. First of all, the Duffer Brothers told us it would be a dark Christmas. Yeah, it was definitely dark, all right, because I was falling asleep. Second of all, they released this on Christmas. Third of all, the pacing was really off. Bro, it took like 20 minutes just to get them talking every single time. They really let the audience down. 11 is no longer the main character. Every scene with Hopper and 11 feels odd. Acting is at a new low Game of Thrones level. So yeah, everybody seems to be pretty disappointed at this point in time. I'll be keeping my eye on the scores and of course watching the show's finale. But if you're looking for something that is 1,000 times better but very similar, watch Dark. I genuinely believe if Dark was filmed in English and it was an English show, it would be their biggest hit. It came out around the same time as Stranger Things, and it's actually the darker, more adult Stranger Things. It is 100 times better. I highly recommend it. But yeah, this show has just turned into a cringe fest. Its pacing is bad, and it feels on the level of Game of Thrones. I cared more about Game of Thrones, like a lot of people did, because the source material was so phenomenal, but it is crazy how they said over all the years, we know that the ending is going to have to stick the landing because people were so disappointed with Game of Thrones and we don't want that situation to happen, when really they cursed themselves and that exact thing is now happening. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.